Many of us come to Tanakh with certain portraits of biblical characters preconceived in our heads, portraits which are often colored not by the simple sense of the text, but by midrashic interpretations, where biblical figures are often presented as black or white, all good or all evil. Thus, we open Parashat Toledot assuming that Esav is wicked and Yaakov is righteous. Esav the hunter is a trickster who cares nothing for spirituality, while Yaakov the Ish Tam is an upright character who spends his days in religious pursuits. On one hand, this characterization seems perfectly reasonable, considering that, after all, Yaakov is chosen by Hashem, while Esav is rejected. Nonetheless, when we read the Yaakov and Esav stories inside, we may well wonder if the characterization should not be reversed. Does Yaakov's behavior really fit with his characterization as an Ish Tam? Do Yaakov's actions not provide support for Esav's complaint that Yaakov swindled him twice? How are we to understand Yaakov's apparent exploitation and tricking of his brother when buying the birthright and taking the blessing? Where is his righteousness and tmimut? Let's focus on the first of these stories, the sale of the birthright. The story is well known. Esav returns from the field tired and hungry to find Yaakov cooking a lentil stew. He requests a portion, and Yaakov asks for payment in return, specifically that Esav sell him the bechorah, or birthright. Esav responds, "I'm about to die. What need do I have for the birthright?" and proceeds with the sale. The story ends by telling us, "Vayivez Esav et ha-bechorah," and Esav scorned the birthright. The story raises many questions, not only about the ethics of Yaakov's actions, but also about Esav's reactions to those deeds. First, did Yaakov exploit Esav's vulnerability at a moment when Esav was starving to death? When Esav says, "Anochi holech lamut," is he literally about to die of hunger? If so, how are we to understand Yaakov? Or are Esav's words simply a hyperbolic way of saying that he was famished, the way someone today might walk into the kitchen and complain, "I'm dying of hunger"? Did they really have no other food in their home? Second, was Yaakov not guilty of extortion by purchasing the birthright for a meager pot of lentils? Was not the birthright worth much more than that? Third, if the birthright was a valuable commodity, why did Esav belittle it? Did he scorn it only after the fact, in an attempt to console himself over the loss, a version of sour grapes? Or did he have little appreciation or use for the birthright even beforehand? And if so, did this perhaps play into his willingness to sell it? One last question. What is the birthright anyway? For any evaluation of both Yaakov and Esav's actions needs to identify what exactly it was that was being bought and how it should be valued. Was the birthright a financial commodity, perhaps a double portion of the father's inheritance? Or might the bechorah refer simply to some type of spiritual or chosen status, as when Hashem refers to Israel, his chosen nation, as B'ni Bechori Yisrael? Commentators are troubled by these questions, not only due to a desire to exonerate Yaakov for themselves, but also because these issues provided ammunition for Christian claims of Jewish dishonesty. Sefer Yosef HaMekaneh, a 13th century polemical work which collects and combats Christian readings of various biblical passages, shares how a Dominican friar encountered Rav Yosef on a street in Paris and castigated him. Yaakov avichem ganav haya, ve'ein ochel ribit kamohu, shebishvil kara achat shayta shava mechza, kana ha-bechorah shayta shava 1,000 zkukim. Your father Yaakov was a thief, and there's no usurer who compares to him. For a pot that was worth half a coin, he bought the birthright that was worth 1,000 coins. On the backdrop of such accusations, it's not surprising that Parshanim throughout the centuries have searched for ways to justify Yaakov's behavior in our story. Let's explore some of their attempts. A first approach defends Yaakov by viewing the birthright not as a financial commodity, but as a spiritual status which Esav was both unworthy of and uninterested in receiving. This position is found in both Breshit Rabbah and Rashi's commentary. According to both, Esav is an evil character, guilty not only of deceiving his father, but of heinous crimes such as murder. In the opening of our story, Rashi presents Esav as returning from the field, ayef beritzicha, weary from murder. On this backdrop, he tells us, לפי שהעבודה בבכורות, אמר יעקב, אין רשע זה כדאי להקריב לקדוש ברוך הוא. Because the sacrificial service was carried out by the firstborns, Yaakov thought, this evil one is not worthy of sacrificing to Hashem. Rashi understands the birthright to be equivalent to the priestly status. This identification is likely motivated by the fact that later, after their salvation from Makat Bechorot, we know that the firstborns are consecrated to service of Hashem, allowing for the possibility that such service was the privilege of the firstborns even before the Exodus. According to Rashi, then, the righteous Yaakov was motivated not by desire for financial gain or materialistic greed, but purely by ideological concerns. He saw that his brother was unworthy of such a spiritual position and felt compelled to take his place. One might still question, does this nonetheless justify exploiting your brother's starvation? Who is Yaakov to decide who is most fitting for the task? Rashi responds by suggesting both that Esav was not starving and that Esav himself felt unfit for the job. Explaining Esav's words, Hine anochi holech lamut, Rashi writes, Kamaz harot va'onshim tluyot ba'avodah. Amar, ani holech ayada lamut. Im kain, ma chayfetz liba. There are so many prohibitions and punishments associated with service of God. I'm surely to die by its hands, and if so, I have no desire for it. According to Rashi, Esav was not about to die of hunger. Rather, upon learning of the strict requirements associated with the sacrificial service and the harsh consequences of non-adherence, he recognized that for a non-righteous person like himself, such service could be fatal, and so he scorned the position. As such, there was neither exploitation, as Esav was not on the verge of death, nor extortion, since the birthright held no value to him. Rashi thus manages to uphold Yaakov's righteous reputation while simultaneously casting Esav as the negative character, someone who cared nothing for service of Hashem. Rashi's portraits of the two brothers in our story fit his general tendency to view biblical characters as black or white, vilifying the Esavs and praising the Yaakovs. A variation of this approach is developed by Rev David T Hoffman, a 19th to 20th century German commentator. He similarly views the birthright as a spiritual commodity, though not the priestly status, but rather the bequeathing of Avram's legacy, with its accompanying promise of land and progeny to a chosen son. Whoever obtained the birthright would become the father of the chosen nation. Like Rashi, Rev David T Hoffman claims that Yaakov saw Esav as unworthy of this position. Moreover, he further suggests that Esav's very despising of the birthright proves his unworthiness. במילים ברורות מראה הכתוב שלא ידע עשיו להעריך נכס רוחני, ושכל שאיפתו לאכילה ולשתייה הייתה מכוונת, כך שאפילו אחר שאכל לסובו, לא התחרט על המכירה הזאת. אדרבה, חשב שעשה כן עסק טוב. With clear words, the text shows that Esav did not know how to value a spiritual commodity, and that his whole desire was to eat and drink, so that even after he ate his fill, he did not regret the sale. To the contrary, he thought he had made a good deal. According to Rev David T Hoffman, Esav was a slave to his physical desires, willing to sell the birthright so as to indulge his immediate cravings, ignoring the consequences for the future. When Esav says, Hine anochi holech lamut, he wasn't literally on the verge of death, but rather, his cravings were so strong that he felt he would die if he could not get what he wanted. So, for Rev David T Hoffman, like for Rashi, there is neither extortion nor exploitation. His portrait of Esav, though, is not one of evil incarnate, but rather simply of a person who is incapable of thinking past the moment and of appreciating the value of spiritual blessings. With this, let's move to a second approach. Those Parshanim who justify Yaakov by suggesting that contrary to our initial impressions, Yaakov actually paid fair value for the birthright. Thus, Rushboim, Rashi's grandson, writes that Yaakov told Esav, Mechor li chelek bechoratcha haroi lecha b'mamon avi, b'mamon she'eten lecha, v'achar kach eten lecha hamachal le'edut l'kiyum. Kederach shematinu, v'yochalu sham al hagal, v'kiyum brit ben Lavan li'Yaakov. Sell me your firstborn share in our father's money in exchange for money that I will give you, and afterwards I will give you the food in order to corroborate and confirm the transaction. In contrast to Rashi, Rushboim assumes that the birthright constituted a double portion of the inheritance, and that Yaakov did not buy it with a bowl of lentils, but with money. The meal simply served to close the deal, much like how, in our times, someone might shake hands at the end of a business negotiation. According to him, the two statements, Vayimkor et bechorato liYaakov and V'Yaakov natan le'Esav lachem u'nezir adashim, are distinct actions. Esav sold the birthright and received for it monetary compensation. Separately, Yaakov also provided a meal to seal the deal. Rushboim, recognizing the novelty of his reading, points to other stories in Tanakh where meals serve a similar purpose, such as the meal eaten by Lavan and Yaakov after they make a covenant. This methodology is very typical of Rushboim. His commentary is filled with proof texts as he looks to other verses in Tanakh to prove that a certain action should be understood in light of the realia or derech eretz of Tanakh's time. Rushboim then continues to further exonerate Yaakov, quoting his father Rabbi Meir, who interprets Esav's statement, Hinei anochi holech lamut, by placing the following words in Esav's mouth. B'chol yom ani holech latzur chayot bayarim, hamitzuyim sham dubim v'arayot v'chayot ra'ot, v'ani mesukan lamut. Esav was not referring to an imminent death due to hunger, but to the fact that his precarious livelihood and constant encounters with wild animals placed him in a mortal danger on a daily basis. He told Yaakov that since it was likely that he would predecease his father and never benefit from the birthright, he had no need for it. Rushboim thus manages to portray a Yaakov who neither cheats his brother nor takes advantage of his hunger. Unlike Rashi, though, he does so without painting Esav as an utterly evil figure. Ibn Ezra, a contemporary of Rushboim, similarly justifies Yaakov by suggesting that he paid a fair price for the birthright. But instead of claiming that Yaakov paid more than what people tend to think, he claims that the birthright was actually worth much less than generally assumed. He suggests that the reason that Esav scorned the birthright was because Yitzchak was almost penniless, making his inheritance basically worthless. Moreover, as suggested by Rushboim's father, he felt like he was likely to die a premature death and never collect the inheritance. Ibn Ezra writes, Vayivez Esav et ha-bechorah ba'avur shera'ah she'ein la'aviv osher. Esav scorned the birthright because he saw that his father had no wealth. V'rabim yitmahu, ki azav lo Avraham mamon rav. Uche'ilu lo ra'u bimehem asher gadol b'nurav ba'lidei oni bizkunav. Now many are surprised, for Avraham had left him great wealth. Have they never seen in their lives a person who was rich in his youth but came to poverty in his old age? Ibn Ezra then goes on to bring several proofs to support his contention that Yitzchak was poor, pointing out that not all righteous need be wealthy. His vehemence on the point is somewhat surprising, and makes us wonder if perhaps Ibn Ezra was not reading a bit of himself into Yitzchak, for Ibn Ezra too may have been destitute. Either way, according to him, though Yaakov only paid with a bowl of lentils, this was not extortion, since that was all the birthright was worth to Esav. So, according to both Rushboim and Ibn Ezra, the deal was a fair one, and Yaakov paid the full worth of the Bechorah, be it large or small. With this, let's move to one last approach, that of Rav Yosef Bechor Shor, a 12th century French Tosafist, who is unique in taking almost the entire story at face value. He assumes that Esav was literally dying of hunger with no other sources of food, and that Yaakov did buy the birthright for a mere pot of stew. Rav Yosef Bechor Shor nonetheless defends Yaakov, suggesting that everyone has the right to look out for themselves. Amar lo Yaakov, Im ata meit mitat atzmacha, harei kol asher lavi biyadi, ve'im ochelcha v'techyeh, hareini mafsid memshala gdola, she'ata bechor v'tikach hakol. Yaakov tells Esav, if you die, then everything our father owns becomes mine. But if I feed you and you live, I will lose out because you are the firstborn, and you will take everything. Aval im timkor li bechoratcha, az ochelcha v'techyeh v'lo tamut, ואני לא אפסיד במה שאוכלך. כי כמו שאתה רוצה לעצמך, אני אוהב לעצמי, ואיני אוהבך יותר ממני. If, though, you sell me the birthright, then I will feed you, and you will live, and I won't lose out for having fed you. Just as you look out for yourself, I need to look out for myself more than I need to look out for you. Rav Yosef Bachor Shor claims that the birthright meant exclusive rights to Yitzchak's inheritance. He assumes that, like the custom of primogeniture in feudal France, the birthright gave the firstborn full claim to the father's entire estate. All other children get nothing and must fend for themselves. According to Rav Yosef Bachor Shor, then, the birthright was a zero-sum game, and without his bold act, Yaakov would have been left empty-handed upon his father's death, forced to abandon the land of his forefathers and to find a different land of his own in which to live. Thus, Rav Yosef Bachor Shor claims that Yaakov had the right to place his own interests ahead of his brothers and to look out for his own welfare. According to Rav Yosef Bachor Shor, then, Esav's decision to sell the birthright was not impulsive, but a rational response to the circumstances. He scorned the birthright only because his life was at stake. He adds that Esav further trusted that his father's love would ensure that despite the sale, he would still be able to inherit. Ultimately, according to Rav Yosef Bachor Shor, Esav was in fact correct. Yitzchak did try to help Esav evade the consequences of the sale by using the method of a living will, attempting to bless and bequeath to him the inheritance as a gift before he died. As such, Rav Yosef Bachor Shor's portrait of the two brothers differs greatly from that of most other commentators. Each is a neutral character who recognized that in a world filled with uncertainty and a constant lack of security, one needs to always look out for one's own self-interest. To summarize, we have explored vastly different attempts to justify Yaakov's actions and seen contrasting portraits of each brother. Rashi justifies Yaakov by vilifying Esav and presenting him as unworthy and uninterested in the birthright. Rushboim, in contrast, maintains a somewhat neutral characterization of Esav, choosing instead to defend Yaakov by suggesting that he paid full price for the birthright. Finally, Rav Yosef Bachor Shor equates the two brothers in their desire to look out for themselves, seeing in this a necessary quality in their struggle for survival. Our story makes us think, under what circumstances, if ever, is it okay to put one's own interests first, if doing so will come at someone else's expense? And even if justified, at what price? Does history ultimately vindicate Yaakov, or perhaps does it suggest that in the end, he paid dearly for his actions? For more on Yaakov and Esav and other topics related to Parshat Toledot, please visit al-hatorah.org.